Hello everyone and welcome back to Python lessons on Codecademy. Today we will be looking at loops. So far we've only learned about for loops, but today we will be learning about while loops as well. For loops are mainly useful when you're trying to look through a string, a list, or a dictionary. While loops are useful in other ways, but you can still use them in lists, dictionaries, and strings. So let's get started. So our new function, no, not function, our new keyword is going to be while. It works similar to how an if statement would work. So you tell it, you would say to an if statement, if count is less than 5, do this. With a while function, or while loop, it's not a function really, uh, you would say while something is true, do whatever I tell you to do. So might mean do it only once, or it might mean do it more than once, or loop it. So let's see what the first task requires us to do. So change the loop so it counts up to 9 inclusive. So there are two ways in which you can do this. You can either do while count is smaller than 10, print hello I am a while and count is whatever it is, or you can do it uh, while count is equal smaller than or equal to 9. Either way would work. So if we save and submit, as we can see, the if statement prints 0, just 0 and only once, but the while statement is going to print that 10 times, from 0 to 9. So be careful not to change or remove the count plus equals 1 bit. That will be explained later on with uh, infinite loops and why it's really bad to do that. So let's go on. So while loops require a condition just like if statements require a condition. So the loop condition variable is set to true. So loop condition equals true, therefore we're saying while true. You can do the same with an if statement. If true, it's always going to enter. While true, it's again always going to enter. The while loop checks to see if loop condition is true. It is, so the loop is entered, just like an if statement. The print statement is executed. The variable loop condition is set to false, and the while loop again checks to see if loop condition is true. It's not, so the loop is not executed a second time. So what happens is, it goes through the lines of code, so it sees that loop condition is true. It writes that down in its memory. Then, while true, so it says do this, pretty much, print I am a loop, and then change the value of loop condition to false. And then once once it got to the end of the while loop, it goes back to the while statement and checks while condition. In this case, condition is false, so it's going to skip everything that's in that loop, just like an if statement would if this was false at first. So let's save and submit, and let's continue. Create a while loop that prints out all the numbers from 1 to 10 squared, so 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, each on their own line. Fill in the... So that's our task. There are two ways in which you can start it. So you can start it while num is smaller than 11, or while num is smaller than or equal to 10, which is the way I prefer of doing it. And then you tell it what you want to do. So we need to print the number. So this is how you do to the power of 2. You can also do num times num, but I'm pretty sure that num double times sign 2 is more efficient, and that's what the task requires us to do anyway. And then we need to increment num by 1. So num plus equals 1. Therefore what we should get is the whole list of numbers from 1 to 10 squared in its own line, which is exactly what we get. So let's explain this a bit more. At first, num is 1, so it enters the while function with num being, well, not function, sorry, the while loop. I'm going to be getting that wrong all the time, aren't I? I'll try not to. I'll do my best to say loop instead of function. Um, so while num is smaller than or equal to 10, it's going to print num to the power of 2. So it enters while with num. Num is 1. 1 times 1 is 1. So it prints 1. And then increments 1 by 1, so 2. Therefore num is 2. Then when it gets to this line, it goes back to the while statement and checks again. Is num smaller than or equal to 10? Yes, it is. So it goes in, prints 2 times 2, or 2 to the power of 2, which is 4, and increments that by 1. So we get 3. 3 times 3 is 9, so 9 is printed. Then we get to 10. 10 times 10 is 100, and then num is incremented to 11. So num equals 11. Then once it's done executing num plus equals 1, it goes to the while statement again and checks, is 11 or num smaller than or equal to 10? No, it's not, because 11 is bigger than or greater than 10. So it skips everything that's in the while loop, and it would go onto this line. So if we say print hello, oops, that's not a variable, it's going to print hello. Ooh, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Ah, I think I just lost it. My mistake. I'll just do that again quickly. Sorry about this. Come on, load. I'm processing some videos, so it might take a bit longer, although I don't think that depends that much on the videos being processed. Why isn't it loading now? I have no idea. Codecademy. Ah, here it is. Okay. Why is it so slow? Is it my fault? So then, okay, so if we do print and hello, after it's printed all of the square numbers to 10, it's going to print hello. So we see there. So let's move on. Simple errors. So fill in the loop condition, so the user will be prompted for a choice over and over while choice does not equal y and choice does not equal n. So sometimes you might need to use a while loop to check the input of a user, because you might not want the input to be something that you don't want it to be. For example, if you want a character, you might not want it to be a number, or, well, if you wanted a letter, I mean, you might not want it to be a number, or you might not want it to be something specific. So in this case, we just need to check if choice is not equal to one of those. So while choice doesn't equal n or y, oops, and y actually, I'll explain why later. So while choice doesn't equal n and choice doesn't equal y. So this means if choice doesn't equal either of those, then execute what's in the while loop until it does equal either one of those. So let's see what happens if we submit code. If we enter something other than those two, we just get an error. And blank space or nothing also counts as a character. Now if we enter y, because we are enjoying the course, aren't we? we get returned with nothing, which means that the code has been successfully executed. So let's move on. Infinite loops. So let's start off by explaining what an infinite loop is. An infinite loop is a loop that never exits. So if you make a loop that, say, you have it as, oh, okay, this is a great example. Count is smaller than 10. This is always going to be true because 0 is always going to be smaller than 10. And we are not doing anything about count so that it makes it greater than 10. So what this task requires us to do, I'm guessing, is increment count by 1. So count plus equals 1 should do the trick. The loop in the editor has two problems. It's missing a colon. Oh, I didn't notice that. And count is never incremented. The latter will result in an infinite loop, so be sure to fix both before running. If we save and submit, we get the same result as we did in while you're at it. So we get a list from 0 to 9. So let's go on. Break. Break is useful especially in while loops or also in for loops if you don't want to get the whole for loop executed, which would make it more efficient. So once you get to a point, you might want to break and get the result that you have at that point. So what it does is by saying break, you're just telling the loop to finish at the point where it is and end the loop at from where it's finished. So okay, let's explain it. So say if I have some other statement in here, if count is, I don't know, equal to 10, and if it breaks before this, it sees this, this is going to be skipped completely, and it's going to go on to this line. So let's see what this wants us to do. Okay, so I just need to explain it pretty much. While true, so this is creating an infinite loop if we didn't have the break. So this will go on forever. Print count, so it's going to print 0 and all the way up to 10, if I'm correct. And then once it gets to 11, it's not going to print 11 because count is here. So count is going to be printed as 10, then count is going to become 11. And once it's 11, it's going to break, so get out of the while loop. Therefore, it's going to skip this whole thing. So even if this is here or if it isn't here, it doesn't matter. It's only going to be printed once when count is going to be 10. So let's see what happens. Oh, what? So if once we get to 9, it prints 9, count plus equals. Oh, if it's bigger than or equal to 10. So if it is 10, then it breaks. So this is never printed because count never gets to be 10 at this point. Right. So break just exits the while loop completely. That's the simple explanation, or any loop completely. That's the simplest explanation for break. If you have any questions, I might be able to go into more examples. So just put them in the comment section down below. So let's move on. Just like you can do if and else, you can also do while and else. It might sound a bit complicated at first, but it's not that complicated really. So let's see what this code does at first. Lucky numbers. So it prints what it's told to print. Then count is set to 0. While count is smaller than 3, number is going to set to be a number between 1 and 5 because 6 is excluded. So it's going to print one of those numbers. So in this case it's 3. If the number is 5, then we lose. So this is like gambling, kind of, I guess. Maybe that's what it's trying to show, and that's going to happen 3 times. After the third time, the count is going to be bigger than 3. So, no, yeah, after the third time, count is going to equal 3, actually. So therefore, the while isn't going to be executed. And instead of, when it's not executed, it goes into the else and tells us that we've won. Otherwise, uh, if it is executed, then and num does equal 5 somehow at any point of the game, then it breaks completely without printing the else. So if break is executed, then it completely exits the while else loop. So it would go into this line if it executes break. So let's move on. So now it wants us to make our own while else function, or coding, or loop, I guess. It's not a loop, it's so in this exercise, allow the user to guess what the number is 3 times. So we're going to be recreating the previous example, but in a different way. So this raw input returns a string, therefore we need to put integer to make that output integer, or input, to make the input integer, sorry. And then we need to use a while loop to let the user keep guessing so long as guesses left is greater than 0. So we need to start our game here. While guesses left is greater than, we need to ask the user for their guess. If they guess correctly, print you win. So if guess equals, what are they supposed to guess? Random number. Then print you win. There we go. Decrement guesses left by 1. I think that we need to do it at this point. So minus equals 1. Oops, minus equals 1. Use an else case after your while loop to print you lose. Oops, didn't mean to put it there. So this is going to be do the same thing as the previous example. So let's guess 2. That's not the number. 3, 4. We didn't guess the number. So we have another error that we have. We have another error in our program. And that's when we win, we need to break out. Otherwise, if it prints win, it's again going to ask us for input. And at the end, it's going to print you lose anyway. So your guess to, let's do 2, 3, 4 again. And we lose. Oops. Okay. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments to make, please put them in the comment sections down below. Please press the like button if you like this video, dislike button if you didn't like the video, and tell me why you didn't like it or how I can improve. Subscribe if you want more videos, and until next time, goodbye.